Hi and welcome to another one of our videos where today you're going to be looking at balance boards and some of the exercises that we might use with this type of training. So I'm going to go from sort of go-to one to some of the more complicated ones and explain a bit what the purpose of each one is for. So it's obviously balance is an integral part of it, but a lot of people misunderstand this. The balance board's a different exercise. In this one here, where we're really looking for the balance board to ensure that he maintains good posture. The big mistake we see on this one is people losing the posture and adopting this hunched over, and it just goes wrong really quickly the minute it does that. But the other beauty of this thing is it really tries to see if you've got a 50-50 ratio of strength from left leg to right leg, because if you're favouring one side, it's impossible to get this board to balance properly. All right, so as much as it's improving balance, is really looking at enhancing the posture that you have in a squat and making sure that the legs are even. If you can do that, you'll get the board doing exactly what Dylan's doing there. All right, and that's fairly easy for someone who's got good squat form. Nathan here is showing you the harder version of the same thing. Now, if you look carefully at where his feet are, he's actually got it uneven, deliberately uneven, and the leg that's working really hard is this one here. This one is almost doing a single leg squat. There's hardly any weight being applied to this leg, so it's probably a 90-10 split on distribution of weight here. So again, the same rules of the trunk and the posture must apply. If he starts swinging his arms around to try and find balance, all it will do is throw him off. If his trunk sways, which is also what we see a lot on these, so falling out to the side, again you won't be able to keep the board still, because this upper body, just like the last one, has to remain dead center. No matter what happens with the legs, that upper body can't move. So these are great exercises to use, especially in rehabilitation when there's a favouring of one side, not just with knees and ankles and that either. This is also great for back pain, where we start to see shoulder sway. You see Nathan had a bit of shoulder sway there. And this sort of preludes ACL cutting moves where we do see shoulder sway more pronounced. Now this is a progression. Obviously we're introducing dumbbells, and it's an upper body movement. Ironically, this is much harder, but people will perform it much better. And the reason is, when the dumbbells come out in front here on this frontal raise, it actually encourages a better posture, and it also creates really good stiffness, because we give them the cue to keep the two dumbbells together. So it's a paradox, because it's harder, but people actually perform this version better than the one without the dumbbells. So this is a great progression, and anyone who's struggling to learn how to keep their upper body still, and you will get very fatigued. By the way, the reps on these, we never usually do more than 5. I find if you try and do too many reps, they just fatigue really badly. Now this one is where we're using the dumbbell. Nathan makes a huge mess of this at the beginning, and see he does the common thing where people move this arm out to copy this side. We don't want that to happen. All right, so we want to keep this arm quiet by keeping it in the middle to keep his stiffness in his upper body, so he doesn't have sway. All right, so because there's an unbalanced weight here, he having to really coordinate how does he stay still and not allow his body to follow it and fall out to the side. So then I give him the cue, keep your arm still, keep your arm still. And he's got to stay low. If he goes high, everything goes wrong. All right, so a lot harder progression just by making him unstable, and you see how badly his other arm wants to copy that movement. All right, so now we move out of the squat movements and then into the push-up. So the push-up is sort of the same principle as the squat, in that, and by the way, this is only useful if you elevate one leg. If you leave both legs on the ground, you may as well do the push-up on the floor. There's really no difference to using it. So the only advantage of doing it this way is to have one foot off the ground. Now when we do it this way, to make it easier, we have his foot in line with the middle of the board. All right, so we're giving him as a triangular base, so you can sort of see he's got a really a good way of creating good stability. He just needs to make sure that the arms are even. That's why it's similar to the squat. So if he's favouring one side, he won't be able to execute this very well. And obviously all of these will need some sort of trunk activation to keep the board still. All right, so that's the simple push-up that we might use. And again, I might only do 5 reps on each side. You'll be amazed how much the leg gets fatigued on this through the quad and the hip, trying to create the stability required. Nathan here is showing you another version of this where we have an uneven triangle. All right, so this is where we're a bit like that uneven squat. Instead of the foot remaining in the center, you'll see when he goes down here, that foot is now out to the side. So we have a triangle that's more like this, as opposed to the one before when it was even. This is really easy to get your stability. This one's very difficult because there's too much weight on one side. So that's how we might progress that movement. Again, with the purpose of like trying to get even distribution of weight. All right. If a person's struggling with any of these movements on the ground, we won't use this. They have to execute perfect form on the floor before we apply any balance. And that's no different to load. I don't apply load to anything that doesn't show me good form in its body weight version. All right. So now we're going to move to the lunge. So we've seen the squat, we've seen the push-up. This is where we bring in the lunge, and now the board sort of starts to move in a different angle, in a different plane. So now we start to see, can he control, and again, this is where we see people not favouring that front leg. If they don't have confidence or strength in that front leg, and in a normal lunge, they're sort of falling forward, and we sort of see this, they will really find this difficult to do. They just will have too much weight, and the board will be sort of smacking forward and down. Usually they'll turn the board into a ramp. And they just can't control it. This is a great one for ankles as well, so it's great, and you'll see in a second a progression of this. But another great exercise just to enhance the stability and the timing and the positioning of the lunge. And Dylan makes this look really easy. A lot of people will really find this quite hard and be surprised how hard that front leg works on this movement. Nathan here is going to show us the progression. This is where we add a simple stepping up movement. So this is where he has to really work hard to have his weight distributed perfectly so the board doesn't slam backward or forward in a real rush, and he's doing a great job of that. And you see that he keeps that board perfect, so he makes that look easy. That's a very tough exercise. Alright, so then if we move to the progression of this one, where Dylan's going to show us, we're going to add a dumbbell to this. Alright, so now we're making him unstable at the upper body, and he's got to really execute, and you can see he made that lunge easy before. This is a lot harder, so many moving pieces. Posture has to be perfect, and he can't look down at his feet, he has to just feel it. So it's a bit of a proprioceptive movement, more so than the others, because you can't see what's going on. This one's an excellent drill. Many people might struggle with this one, so we might keep this to the floor most of the time, but for that advanced exerciser, this is a great progression of the last 2 positions of the lunge. All right, so there's sort of 9 variations of exercises you could use, and there's many others, but again, I probably would say sometimes they border on being just fancy tricks. They really don't serve any purpose to improving anything. Well, their purpose of using the board is to improve the basic fundamental movement of the squat, lunge, and the push-up. That's the purpose. So if we can, sometimes it's not about applying load, sometimes it's about applying reflex stability and positioning and challenging that person to maintain their form for long periods of time, no matter what happens. And then that allows them to move into the greater strength and power positions that follow this. All right, and it just gives them a better awareness of how to hold their body in the position. So if you use it wisely and it's used in conjunction with other exercises, it can have a great effect on your training. If you're just trying to use it for tricks or stuff like that, you're not going to really find much benefit in doing it. All right, so I hope you've enjoyed that video, and we'll see you on our next one.